Corin of Larkhaven first noticed the strange hawk at dawn, when the mews behind the Valenian palace still dripped with pearl-gray mist, and the other birds had not yet tested their voices. The hawk crouched on the outer ledge, feathers ruffled like an offended duchess, one talon worrying at a loop of crimson silk bound to its leg. Corin slipped a gloved hand beneath its chest, crooning in the soft dialect old masters swore only raptors understood. The bird allowed itself to be gathered, but its eyes, sun-bright topazes, stayed wild. He had never banded this hawk. The jesses bore an unfamiliar knot, Eastern style, Eldorian, enemy territory. Yet the bird carried no coded scroll, only the dangling ribbon whose single golden thread caught the watery light. As he stroked the bird's breastbone, Corin found tiny scars crisscrossing beneath the plumage, marks of captivity or battle. Someone had trained this hawk harshly, and recently. By protocol, he ought to march the bird to the king's spy master. War simmered, and any feather fluttering the border winds might bear treachery in its wake. But something in the hawk's trembling, fear, perhaps, more than fury, struck him. Corin unknotted the ribbon instead, finding words stitched in minuscule backstitch along the selvage. Is there anyone under this sky who still remembers mercy? Thread thin, the message quivered in his palm like a pulse. The elegant hand certainly belonged to a woman, a brave one, and possibly a doomed one if he obeyed the letter of the law. He looked at the hawk again. It gazed back, steady now, as though awaiting judgment. Corin sighed, tucked the ribbon inside his tunic, and set to calming the restless bird. That night he sat at his narrow desk in the loft above the mews and composed an answer on scrap linen, slicing the words with a falconer's knife so the fibers would roll into near invisibility when folded. Who begs mercy must already possess it. Send your name, and the mercy will know where to find you. He wound the linen around the hawk's leg, added a sliver of dried rabbit for compensation, and released her past the torches of the ramparts. The bird rose, a black arrow silhouette, and vanished over the razor gleam of the border river. 3 nights later, a twin hawk arrived, this one storm gray, its wingbeats thumping like mailed fists in the hush. Corin's own kestrels raised alarm, but the gray swooped straight to him, lit on his shoulder, and produced a tidier ribbon. I am called Sarah. I am not safe to name further, but I am listening, Sarah. The name tasted like rainwater on his tongue. He wrote back, I am Corin. I keep the king's birds, though not always his orders. If you are hunted, give me proof, and I shall hide your hawks among mine. She tested him. Over a fortnight, the hawks varied wounds. Fragments of Eldorian decrees condemning traitors, broken signet beads, a child's lullaby, rewritten as dirge. Each missive more intimate than the last, sewn into seams of silk so fine the palace scriveners would have needed a spyglass to detect them. Corin answered with poems coaxed from memory, medicinal herbs taped beneath feathers, a feather from his first peregrine, white-barred and rare. He treated her hawks with salves. She responded with sketches of their swift recovery. A correspondence of gentleness grew atop a continent sharpening knives. Then the truth unfurled like a battle standard. The hawk, exhausted, landed atop the loft rafters at dusk, spilling a single parchment bead. Corin unfolded it and knelt as though struck by a flying stone. I am Princess Seraphine of Eldoria, daughter of the slain Lionheart, exiled hostage in the fortress of Mount Iskar. My uncle rules in my stead, but he is crowned only in iron, never in right. He has promised my head to Velen should Eldoria revolt. I fear that bargain nears its hour. He read the lines again, half expecting them to reorder into something less perilous. A princess, enemy royalty. He had been courting treason, in something warmer than treason, without knowing. His pulse hammered like talons on cage bars. Yet the knowledge changed little. The voice behind the ribbon was still Sarah, still bright threads of wit and melancholy humming between them. He poured ink onto parchment. My princess, I would fly to you if wings would heed me. Lacking those, I will send all the wings I command. Mark the night you need them. In the following weeks, war's drum grew louder. Valeni's armorers worked day and night. Eldorian refugees slipped across the river, bearing tales of purges. The king strode the corridors with generals, never noticing when his falconer asked to retain certain birds for private training. Corin drilled his raptors at dusk and dawn until they could weave formations, drop flares, steal decoy helmets from dummies at a whistle. Each lesson was a letter to Sarah rendered in flight. One chilled morning, she answered with a scrap of her own veil, wine red, perfumed faintly with wild roses. He pressed the gauze to his lips before reading the hidden thread beneath its hem. At the next crescent moon, my uncle leaves for parley. The garrison thins. South Tower houses 3 loyal servants, armed with keys. If your birds can bring fire to the north wall, I can reach the forest by midnight. There is an ancient border cairn called Two Sisters. Meet me there. Corin mapped the plan on the inside of his skull until each risk etched like acid. If discovered, he would be executed. She would be displayed as spoils. Their hawks would be butchered for sport. But every time he imagined surrendering, he saw the first ribbon. Is there anyone under this sky who still remembers mercy? He would not allow that question to wither unanswered. On the appointed eve, he entered the king's presence chamber, carrying 3 hooded gyr-falcons and a caged barn owl, a display of new stratagems for the field, Your Majesty, he boasted, bowing low. The king, irritable with negotiations, waved a hand. Do what you will! I have no patience for feathers tonight. Beneath that dismissal, Corin slipped away, birds in tow, to the outermost parapet. The moon, sliced thin as Sarah's embroidery needle, hung above the mountain line like a shard of cracked shield. He freed the falcons first, each bearing oiled torches clipped to tail bells. At his whistle, they dove toward distant Iskar, specks of flame scoring the dark. Moments later, he released the owl, lantern lashed to its breast, scroll clutched in its beak. South Tower. Now, from across the valley, only a trained eye would decipher the signals. But Corin knew Sarah watched. He imagined her in some narrow slit window, disguised as mere ward, pulse singing to the flutter of fire above her roof. He whispered a prayer to every god of air. The falcons struck. From his vantage, the north wall of Mount Iskar bloomed with lights, then churned with panicked shouts. Garrison soldiers loosed arrows at phantoms. One torch ignited a cauldron of pitch, cascading sparks. Corin's birds wheeled free, one wing scorched but alive, and banked toward home while the fortress scrambled. Somewhere within that chaos, Princess Seraphine ran for a door. He sprinted the opposite direction, down the winding goat track that led from the palace cliff to the river's rope bridge. There he had stashed a brindled mare and 2 hoods for anonymity. The ride to Two Sisters' cairn took him along the cataract's roar, behind bramble thickets, across deer trails lit only by stardust. Each hoofbeat drummed the same plea. Let her reach the forest. Let her reach the forest. Near midnight, the cairn rose ahead, 2 stacked pillars of slate, crowned by moss, old as mythical giants. Between them flickered a lantern. Corin slid from the saddle, heart knocking. She emerged from shadow wearing a cloak of ash-gray wool, hood back, hair unbound. Even smeared with soot, she gleamed, the princess he had helped to life through wind and feathers, now stood breathing the same air. Neither spoke at first. They simply watched the other's shape materialize into certainty. Then Corin half bowed, shattered by the instinct of rank, yet she lifted his chin, palms calloused, riding hands, not court-bred. "I feared," she whispered, something bright and wet on her lashes. "The sky would fail us, but you brought it with you." He would remember forever the exact scent of pine and horse and singed feathers that clung to her cloak when she stepped into his arms. It was a brief embrace, greedily stolen, wore yet hunted their heels. They rode at once, twin shapes on the moonlit path, hawks shadowing overhead. Corin knew a smuggler's route along the river that slipped under Valenian patrols and curved back toward Eldoria's heartlands. But they needed daylight's cover of commerce. Until then, they hid within a shepherd's cave, sharing cheese, sharing silence made eloquent by nearness. Hours later, hoofbeats thundered past the cave mouth. Valenian scouts. Corin stiffened, hand on dagger. Sarah pressed fingers to his wrist and, with the calm of sovereigns, breathed so softly even the cave dust dare not stir. The patrols moved on. At dawn, they pushed northward, weaving among timber carts and pilgrim wagons. Sarah posed as a healer's apprentice, Corin as caravan outrider. Their hawks rode hooded, seeming ordinary cargo, yet rumors flew faster than birds. Mount Iskar in disarray. Royal hostage fled, king's falconer missing. Checkpoints multiplied. By midday, a herald proclaimed from a crossroad stump that any man harboring the Princess Seraphine would be branded regicide. Corin met Sarah's eyes across the milling crowd. "They name you for a crime you did not commit," he murmured. "Then let us make it true," she answered, tone iron cool, "and end my uncle's tyranny at its root." The audacity stole his breath. "You would march straight to Eldor Keep?" "There are still loyalists. My nurse smuggled letters these 5 years. A strike now, while the court reels, might save thousands later." He studied her, dust on her cheeks, defiance alight, and realized courtship forged in skies had tempered into partnership on earth. "Then we'll march," he said. They veered east, abandoning safer passes for the direct road to Eldor Keep. Evening found them at the foot of Lion's Gate, twin statues of Eldoria's founding queens glowering down broken steps. Torches bobbed along parapets, guards slouched, expecting no attack so soon after Iskar's chaos. Sarah dismounted, kissed the hawk on her gauntlet, and loosed it skyward. The bird circled once, twice, then screamed, a shrill, familiar note. Within the keep, a second cry answered. Signal received. Loyalists moved like notes in a song half remembered. A baker's boy guided them through postern corridors. An aging knight unlocked an armory where banners of the true line lay hidden under sacks of grain. By midnight, walls bore both hawks and standards. Trumpets woke the court to find Seraphine in the throne alcove. Sword unsheathed, Corin at her right hand, hawk perched upon his shoulder like an omen of dawn. Her uncle, Duke Malrek, burst into the hall in robe and fury. "Niece," he spat, "you stand upon treason." She raised her chin, so the moonstone at her throat caught torchlight. "I stand upon birthright." Then she spoke the ancient call of challenge, a litany every page learned, yet few had dared utter in a century. Malrek reached for the hilt at his waist, but loyal outriders had already taken it. He was hauled, snarling, before the High Council at sunrise, condemned by witnesses, and sealed by the customary blood vow of a reigning monarch. That monarch, after unanimous acclamation, was Seraphine. Corin watched from the gallery, pride and disbelief braided tight. By mid-morning, Eldoria's banners were unfurled along every tower, hawks orbiting like living sigils. Messengers sped to Valene, carrying cautious invitations for truce talks. War, so close to igniting, was smothered in feathers instead of flame. Only after councils concluded did Sarah allow herself a single hour's privacy. She found Corin in the rookery, installing new perches. Without ceremony, she took his calloused hand. "Falconer," she said, voice softened by exhaustion and relief, "the sky kept its promise. Will you keep yours? My promise, Highness? That you would fly to me if wings would heed you." Her smile was shy, as though she weren't a queen, now commanding thousands. "You flew!" Corin swallowed. "I have no noble name to wager, no lands to offer." "You have mercy," she answered, "and the whole horizon." Then she drew his mouth to hers in the hush of cooing fledglings. In the weeks following, Valene's King Ardon accepted a summit at the neutral meadow where the border river forked. Advisors fretted, generals plotted contingencies. But when Ardon arrived, he beheld not an enemy host, but a rowan hawk, one of his own breeding, gliding to perch on Seraphine's wrist. She released it to him, bearing a treaty sealed with joint signets, Eldoria's lion and Valene's oak bound by a circlet of feathers. Ardon read the clauses, saw the sense in peace, and signed. That afternoon, Corin joined Seraphine atop the cairn of two sisters, now a demarcation of alliance rather than frontier. They watched their hawks soar in lazy spirals, while armies struck camp without bloodshed. "Do you regret," Corin asked quietly, "that your courtship lacked halls and minuets, and instead was sewn on scraps of cloth?" Sarah laughed, wind tucking strands of hair across her mouth. "Those scraps stitched a kingdom back together." She threaded her fingers through his. "Besides, I much prefer a dance that leaves footprints on clouds." He looked upward. The hawks were mere flecks against an ocean of sky, sovereigns of air, recognizing no walls, no exiles, no kings, save the wind itself. Below, two humans stood leaning shoulder to shoulder, pulse and breath aligning to some unnamed future. "Let them carry news," she murmured, "that mercy has not forgotten the world." He raised their clasped hands like a standard. Above, the hawks wheeled, and the first feather drifted down, white-barred, rare, and full of promise, landing between their boots. Corin bent, offered it to his queen, but she tucked it behind his ear instead. "Keep it, my falconer," she said. "A pledge that even when earth fails us, the sky will still answer." And together they watched the birds vanish into blue, their clandestine courtship now written wide upon the heavens for any who cared to look up and believe.